Okay. Okay. So today we're going to focus on not stress in the workplace, but stress after work,
Mhm.
which a lot of us have. Some because of work, some because of family, some because of everything in between. So what do you do, or who do you talk to when you're at that point? So who do you speak with?
I talk to my twin about what I can talk to a twin about. I talk to my wife to what I can talk to her about. But honestly, I put on my running shoes and I have a running prayer for about an hour, whether it's in the morning to set my day, it's meditation throughout the day, it's focusing on the breath, understanding that as I exhale, I can let things go and my body physically relaxes. It is really understanding where my boundaries are. This is as far as I can go. I have a little girl, and at times she tries to crawl up my chest while I'm standing, and I tell her this is as high as I go. It's a reminder that there are places where I don't exist. There are responsibilities that aren't mine. There are conversations that I'm not supposed to have. And there are answers that are never supposed to be something that I evoke or give to another person. There are always going to be spaces and times that I don't exist in. And so there's a mentor that said there are three questions that you should ask when you go into a conversation with anybody. And this kind of level set things for me. One, if somebody says something that you react to, one, you need to say something. If that's a no, then keep quiet. Of what you want to say doesn't need to be said by you. If it doesn't, stay quiet. Doesn't need to be said by you right now. No? Okay, so if you operate with those three questions in any situation, you can avoid some craziness. You can avoid taking on more stress than you need to. But you can also understand that there is a sense of, as a therapist, you go into therapy because you've been hurt. You go into therapy because other persons around you couldn't prevent them from being hurt. So we're always trying to fix it, especially social workers. We are the master fixers of most systems because we see everything. We're socialized to be able to do that. When I come home, I have to assess my situation. It's almost like when you take any kind of training going into medicine. Is it safe to go in? Now, if I go in and I'm feeling some type of way, before I go into my house, I got to assess, am I safe to go into this house? Meaning, am I going to say something, do something that's going to make matters worse? If the answer is yes to that question, then I I don't go inside. I sit in my car, I put on an audiobook, put on music, and or I'll sit in my garden. I garden. I'll sit in my garden until I get to a point where my internal temperature is not going to boil over and I'm going to burn somebody. So let's say that I am safe. I go, I go inside. But if my fuse is so short that the smallest thing I'll go off, then I get really, really quiet. And that's an indicator to my wife and my children. It's not the right time to talk to dad right now. When I'm at a place where I've processed what I needed to process in order to speak lovingly and compassionately to my family, or I can hear them and not hear the past clients that I've had for the day, that's when I start to engage. So you got to know yourself.
How did you learn what makes you calm? Like for instance, I knew we grew up gardening like super young, but then we didn't do it from like 5 until you got your house. I actually learned I started running and walking because of you, and it does help. But how did you learn those things that can help you calm down?
Looking at what worked for other people in my life who had a sense of peace that I did not understand. I'm a Christian, and so part of it is also reading scripture. Every single morning I read scripture and I interpret it for myself. the more I know my creator, then the more I know myself. That is to say that if the person who created me gave me all these attributes, I should know the creator so I can know myself. Part of what creates peace for me is knowing what is and isn't my responsibility. When I was dating my wife said, "My happiness isn't your responsibility," which was a slap in the face for me because I thought, as a man, that's my job to make you happy. She unburdened me and wiped that negative programming out of my system and said, "No, I'm going to share my life with you, but my life is not yours. My life is mine." So then I had to start figuring out, okay, well, if that's hers and I'm me, who am I? That was the first question that really started me down this path of how well do I know myself? And in knowing myself, I can find a sense of calm based on the answer to that question. And that question is ever evolving. But if you can answer the question of who are you, then the questions of, well, what's important to me and why? What is it that I really need in my life to have a sense of calm? I can then get those things. Who should I have in my life to create a sense of calm? Now I know who I need to meet to make sure that those needs are met. But you can do that in every aspect of your life, not just a sense of calm, but also your aspirations, relationship goals, spirituality, everything that makes you tick. You can find those things if you answer that basic question: who am I and what do I need? Not what do I want, what is it that I need? Based on those answers, you can really align yourself with what you value because that's also inherent in that question.
So let's say somebody's never been to therapy, which this was me in 2020. I told you I went to therapy in 2020. Right after I had like the big shakeups in my life. What would you say to somebody who unfortunately in our group, in our society, normally people of color, who have been told therapy to white people, or take it to God, or whatever's said in this house, stay in this house? How do you kind of combat those things? Because just so you know up front, my first time going to therapy, it was like I was really standoffish. I didn't know if it was going to work, but I knew you and you talked to me about it. But I'm like, it's easy to talk to you. I don't know this person. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do you get past all of the stigmas that we've grown up with?
I don't think you get past anything. I think you deal with it. But you
Okay.
only deal with it if there's a sense of comfort or there's a sense of chaos. Gilbert Arenas, who was a basketball player for the Wizards, he said that somebody asked him a question that made him doubt himself. And so he went to a black ops person and said, the guy asked him, well, what's the problem? He said, I don't have a problem, I just don't want one. I say that because people think you have to have a problem in order to go to therapy. You can go to therapy so you don't have no problems, meaning that there isn't an ability for you to deal with conflict that will come. They say you have to plan for war even in a time of peace because there's going to be something that's going to challenge you, whether as a way of leveling you up or for your demise. If you want to make it adversarial, you can. There's the saying that if you think it is, it is. If I think therapy's not going to work, guess what? It's not going to work. If I truly believe therapy's going to work, guess what? It's going to work. How we think about anything impacts how we do everything. So if you want therapy to work, believe that it's going to work. But not just therapy, any treatment that you get into for medically, it is really about your belief in something. It goes back to spirituality. When it comes to our community, meaning persons of color, specifically African American, and I can speak for African Americans in the Midwest because that's where I'm from, there does have to be a relationship. So just because one therapist didn't work doesn't mean that all therapists won't. You have to find one that fits you. It's been my experience that people come to me unknowingly. They don't know that I'm a therapist. They just tell me everything, and I create the space. People actually tell me you have such a calming presence that it's just easy for me to talk to you. I went out to Philadelphia to do a presentation, and with by the time I finished the presentation, there were several people in the audience asking, "Well, do you do therapy here?" I said, "I don't." He says, "It's just so easy to talk to you." And let's be clear. Therapy is a talk situation, but it's not the therapist talking. It's the person who comes to therapy who has to do the talking. If you want to find out who you are and have a coach of sorts help you with that question, go to therapy. If the person is doing what they're supposed to, what you'll find out is that you're the person answering all your questions. Therapy literally is you saying, I'm going to carve out time in my existence to focus on me. While I'm focusing on me, I'm building self awareness, I am building self confidence, I am building trust in myself that when I say this is what I want, I say it with the full authority of who I am. Because now I know. We walk around most of the time in an unknowing state, which means that I'm just doing this just because. Well, why are you doing it? I don't know. Well, why don't you know? I've never asked myself the question. Why am I with this person? Why do I want this job? Why do I have this car? Why am I in these clothes? Why do I live in this city? We just do it because life, it's almost like walking on a crowded sidewalk and the people are just pushing you in one direction. By the time that everybody disperses, you don't know where you are. People in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s don't know where they are and they have these breaks. They call it a midlife crisis. Well, you've been going so hard in one direction, you don't know where you are. You've never given yourself time to ask the question, why am I doing this? Why are my thoughts the way they are? Why do I have these types of relationships? And they keep circling back. Every time I think I'm out of one, I go right back into another. Well, therapy is for that. That's not trauma induced therapy. It's not that you lost something significant. It's literally just what do I need to know about me that I don't give myself time to answer?